President, in the interest of time, you have in your packet the book from August financials and also the investment report. My brief comment on those are 2 months. There's nothing material in either that I would speak about. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, great. Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you.
I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda. So moved. Been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Move on to resolutions. I don't have those that are wanting to testify quite yet. As we move to resolutions, as you recall, we're taking any testimony that specifically relates to a particular resolution at the time we're considering that, or prior to considering that resolution. So I think I'm about to do it.
And you'll have, perhaps, Mr. Board President, you'd like my quick reiteration of the resolution first, the staff report, and then you call on for testimony. Sure. Very good. First of all, resolution 10944 would authorize the acquisition of real property. Now, this is the issue that we discussed at your August meeting. The board asked that be deferred while some supplemental information was provided to you. I did provide that to you related to some of the confidential information related to the acquisition itself. But just to reiterate the situation here, this is a hardship acquisition for the Portland to Milwaukee project. We go through a very elaborate process in terms of these hardships. First of all, the property owner requests the hardship and defines the business situation or personal situation that requires a hardship. We then submit that hardship request to the Federal Transit Administration. They review that and, in this case, they approve it. We then order the independent appraisal of the property and then also evaluation of the relocation requirements of the property. And I might note in this case, this is a situation where we work collaboratively with the property owner to actually accommodate some of their business changes going on at the same time, as well as to facilitate the advancement of the Portland Milwaukee project. Again, this piece of property is very strategically located for the project. The project will actually be a straight arrow through the middle of this project. It is across the street from the intersection of Lincoln and NATO. And it is where the actual alignment will go right through the middle of this project property down toward, reaching down toward the Relation South waterfront. So it is at the very, if you will, early part of the project. Any recalibration of the project would obviously include this piece of the project. And so with that bit of background and the additional information, I won't belabor it any longer, but certainly be available to ask any questions or answer any questions in your mind.
Yeah, there's no cost to this. You don't put a cost figure in here. What is the appraisal and what's the cost?
What we have in here, I'm not able to share publicly the cost information. That's why I sent a memo around to the board, confidential memo, that included that information. We could certainly provide that to you separately.
We can't share it
because it's part of the negotiations of a real property transaction.
All right,
so
scratch the appraisal question, but what's the cost to the TriMet?
Well, I think that's the same. I think that's the same answer. So the cost of TriMet would include the cost of the acquisition, which is based on the appraisal as well as the relocation benefits that are required under federal relocation benefits.
Yeah, I think we probably got to move forward, but I just didn't know you couldn't disclose it.
It has been provided to the board.
In an email just after the last board session.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Are there other questions from the board our gentleman? If not, we have two people who would like to speak to this. One is doing it, John Charles is doing it via email. He was unable to attend the letter. Let's distribute that now. We
The other is Steve Shaw. Come forward, Steve. Welcome.
Morning, Chair, Board, TriMet. Before I get to my testimony on this, I want to remind you that Fred Hansen on his departing board meeting, he cited the accountant's or actuarial's assessment that there was a $50 million liability per year not being paid toward other post-employment benefits. I heard the dancing around the issue, but the number is enormous, and certainly the board has known and TriMet has known for many years that this imminent liability was going to service and swallow up large portions of operation revenue in order to fund these other post-employment benefits. I'm glad you got John Charles' email, some good information in there. This resolution was deferred to November meeting and is now back on the agenda today with little warning. The price or value is still not in the resolution. PortlandMass.com shows that the Alpha property was purchased a year ago by Alpha for $2.373 million. And the assessor lists the real market value at $2.741 million. So I hope that the purchase of the property is somewhere in the reasonable real market value today, a year later in this economy. And the other options regarding this resolution, the board claims that the board may not elect to adopt this resolution. However, because of its location and project design, full acquisition of an Alpha property cannot be avoided. In addition, if TriMet does not acquire the Alpha property early, it will cause further financial hardship to Alpha. A later purchase of the property may not afford sufficient time to facilitate relocation to Alpha's business, thereby jeopardizing the project construction schedule. Alpha's already vacated the building. There is no concern about relocation. They've moved into the new building. And the better option would be to cancel the project and allow the property to go back to the real market to be marketed in the environment where there's no risk of condemnation for a project that's ill-conceived. General Manager McFarland continues to claim that TriMet only heard the 50% revision by the feds in late July. Well, we know it's well documented that TriMet knew in 2008 and again in 2009 that the 50% limitation was going to be held firm and that the gap was well known. There was also an additional gap prior to the 50% from the 60% reduction that TriMet was facing. This speaks to the insolvency of the financing plan to the Milwaukee Light Rail. TriMet has to be tone deaf to have not noticed the loss of public support. Every recent news story and commentary where there's comments allowed or local blog threads has comments overwhelmingly opposed to this project, especially in terms of the financing. There is no doubt that this is the worst project and the worst timing, the most irresponsible and reckless financing in Oregon history. In South Waterfront, the Urban Renewal Advisory Committee voted unanimously twice to oppose the taking of the second $10 million after the first $10 million was taken without asking. These votes were then not conveyed to the PDC commissioners or city council. And there's no guarantee that money will actually arrive. With the uprising that's happening out in the citizenry. Clackamas County will not be getting their share from urban renewal tax increment financing. I can tell you now in the review that there's a wide and growing alliance that is going to prevent that from happening, including taxing jurisdictions, unions, and many people in the public sector. Businessmen, there's going to be, if it takes a voter initiative process, it's going to happen. I was at a Clackamas County Fire District meeting Monday night, and the chair of Clackamas County, Lynn Peterson, was there and stated this is not the first time she stated this, there's no other way for them to get funding. She made it perfectly clear, it's on audio tape, and this is what they're relying on for their $25 million share. An Oregonian editorial wrote this week, times are tough, the economy is a mess, but voters can't restore this state by crippling long-term funding for the things they love most about Oregon. If it were possible to take part of the $87 million for parks and use it to help schools stay afloat next year, we'd reluctantly urge a no vote on Measure 76, but it's not. In this environment where the concern is such, where's the same concern for TriMet beginning to spend what will be $400 million out of the state lottery revenue to pay off their $250 million bonds? Not only will those millions not be available for maintaining infrastructure of schools and parks, but many other millions will be diverted to spend on Milwaukee Light Rail. We can stop Milwaukee Light Rail. Besides the $400 million to pay off that $250 million lottery-backed bonds, Plans intend on taking $55 million from Portland Basic Services to pay off their $30 million share. $70 million will come from TriMet's own future operating revenue to pay off their $40 million share. $200 million will be drained from Metro's future transportation infrastructure funding appropriation. $42 million will be taken from Clackamas County Basic Services budgets if they were able to be successful for their tax increment financing scheme. $9 million will come from Milwaukee to pay off their $5 million share. And there's the $750 million federal share, all borrowed and adding to the national debt. The feds are going to have a problem with your application, and the November election is going to certainly make some huge changes at ODOT, the governor's office, and many other things. I mean, it's staggering for me to watch this over years and unfold, and watch JPAC last week, where there's representation from every conceivable government entity, including TriMet. And there's absolutely nowhere can be detected any concern for where the money comes from, how much the project costs, or the effects of taking the money. It's quite staggering to watch this. And, you know, the misrepresentation at so many levels, and here we are arriving at a point where the general manager says November is going to be the tipping point, and the board's presumably going to move forward. This resolution is the beginning of spending more millions of dollars on a train wreck. When it gets down to when the financial reporting is going to require the liability of benefits to actually be recorded on the accounting, you're going to be forced to address it. And you're going to be facing the simple fact that you're either going to pay the benefits or the bonded debt for TriMet or services. And you know what's going to happen last? Services. And you won't be able to fully function as bus service, and the writing's on the wall. And I think you people know it, and behind the scenes there's a deep concern about that. I saw it in Lynn Peterson's testimony to the fire district, and you're going to have to back up and simply kill this thing. And so knowing that alliance out there that's going to be obstructing the success of this project, as well as other work to prohibit the use of the streetcar, I offer you, the opportunity here to save some face and simply surrender. And you're facing insurmountable financial and public opposition. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Any further questions of the general manager before we vote on it? Comments? Okay. I'm looking for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 100945, authorizing a modification to an intergovernmental agreement with Metro for environmental design and project coordination services for the Portland-Milwaukee Light Rail project. Mr. General Manager.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, this resolution would authorize a relatively modest contract modification for Metro, who have been our prime agent in developing the environmental impact statements, both draft and final, for the Portland-Milwaukee project. These things are obviously very hard to scope at the very beginning because they involve a lot of public involvement and response to the public, and some uncertainty as to the schedule. And of course, over the last couple of months, we've reached the point where we needed to do some recalibration and some new work and some new travel forecasts associated with that new work, and so that our documentation and applications related to the final environmental impact statement and our application for final design of the Federal Transit Administration were all current and up to speed. And so the additional modification of $138,000 would help cover those additional expenses for Metro. Again, these funds are paid for out of the state of Oregon lottery funds and government agreement passed through between TriMet and ODOT. So no TriMet general funds involved. We have to answer any questions about this.
Other questions from the General Manager on this resolution? For a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.